Stop whining. It's already sold. Those were the words that changed everything. My daughter Anna stood in my kitchen like she owned the place, arms crossed, completely unbothered by the devastation she'd just delivered. I needed that money for my trip to Italy. I stared at her, my hands still wet from washing dishes, Hans's coffee mug trembling in my grip. You sold your father's Rolex without asking me. Mutter, seriously, get over it. It's just a watch. Just a watch. 6 months after burying my husband of 43 years, and my own daughter had stolen the only thing of Hans's I wore every day, wound every morning like Hans taught me, feeling connected to him through that simple ritual. The thing about betrayal is that it has a taste. Bitter, metallic, like pennies on your tongue. Standing there in my Chicago kitchen, staring at my 42-year-old daughter, who apparently thought grief had an expiration date, I tasted it fully for the first time. Which pawn shop? I asked quietly. Anna's wife, Lena, looked up from her phone. Oh good. She's being reasonable now. Her voice dripped with that particular condescension she'd perfected over the years. Honestly, Elizabeth, clinging to material possessions isn't healthy. Hans wouldn't want you living in the past. Don't tell me what Hans would want, I thought, but bit my tongue. Lena had been telling me what Hans would want since the funeral, usually whenever it involved me giving them something. Golden State Pawn on Milwaukee Avenue, Anna said, checking her watch. An expensive Apple thing that probably cost more than Hans's Rolex was worth. They gave me $1,200. Not bad for something that old. $1,200 for a 1978 Rolex Submariner that Hans had saved 3 months of overtime to buy when Anna was born. The watch Hans wore every single day of our marriage except the day he died, when the hospital handed it to me in a plastic bag with his wedding ring. That watch was worth at least $4,000, I said. Lena snorted. In what universe? It wasn't even running properly. Because I was the one winding it, keeping it alive, keeping Hans alive in some small way. But they wouldn't understand that. Anna and Lena lived in a world where everything had a price tag and nothing had a memory. I'm going to get it back, I announced. Good luck with that, Anna said, heading for the door. We fly out tomorrow morning. Lena's been planning this trip for months. Lena followed her, pausing at the door with that fake sympathetic expression she wore whenever she wanted to seem caring. Elizabeth, you really should consider therapy. This obsession with Hans's things isn't normal. The door slammed, leaving me alone with the bitter taste of betrayal and the silence that had become my constant companion since Hans died. But here's what Anna and Lena didn't know about their pathetic old mother. I'd spent 40 years as a bank manager. I knew the difference between giving up and strategic planning, and I was done giving up. The pawn shop was exactly what I'd expected, cramped, dusty, with the kind of fluorescent lighting that made everything look sickly. The man behind the counter had arms covered in tattoos and the weary expression of someone who'd seen every sob story in the book. You hear about the Rolex? He asked before I even opened my mouth. How did you know? Your daughter warned me you might show up. Said you were having a hard time letting go. He shrugged apologetically. Look lady, I feel for you, but business is business. I paid fair market value. Fair market value. As if there was a standard price for 43 years of marriage, for the sound of Hans winding that watch every morning while his coffee brewed. For the weight of it in my hands when the hospital nurse placed it there alongside his wedding ring. I'll buy it back. Whatever you need. The man, his name tag read Klaus, looked uncomfortable. It's already sold. Guy came in this morning, paid cash, no returns in this business. My heart sank. Some stranger was walking around Chicago wearing Hans's watch, and I'd never see it again because my daughter needed pizza money for her Italian vacation. But here's the thing, Klaus continued, lowering his voice. We found something weird when we were cleaning it up for sale. He disappeared into a back room and returned with a small manila envelope. There was a hidden compartment in the back. Real professional job, had to have been done by a jeweler. Found this inside. Inside the envelope was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. In Hans's careful handwriting, * Elizabeth's birthday, July 15, 1955. The day I knew I'd marry her. * below that, a series of numbers and letters that looked like some kind of code. SS4457CH0815DS. I stared at the paper, my hands shaking. Hans had never mentioned any hidden compartment. In 43 years of marriage, he'd kept this secret, hidden in plain sight on his wrist. "You recognize those numbers?" Klaus asked. I shook my head, but something about them nagged at me. They looked familiar, like a password or account number. Hans had been meticulous about record-keeping, always writing down important numbers in his careful handwriting. "The guy who bought the watch," I said suddenly. "What did he look like?" Klaus's expression shifted, became more guarded. "Why?" "Because my husband hid this for a reason, and I think whoever bought that watch might be in for a surprise." "Ma'am, I really can't. Please." I leaned forward, letting Klaus see the grief that was still raw after 6 months. "That watch is all I have left of him. I'm not asking you to break any laws. I just want to know if the buyer seemed to know about the compartment." Klaus was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Finally, he sighed. He didn't say much, but when I mentioned we'd found something inside, he got real interested. Asked if we'd opened it. A chill ran down my spine. "Did he give you a name?" "Paid cash. No paperwork required for purchases." Klaus paused. "But he did ask specifically about watches that had come in recently. Said he collected vintage Rolexes." Someone had been looking for Hans's watch specifically. But why? And how did they know about the hidden compartment? I thanked Klaus and walked back to my car. The piece of paper burning in my purse like a secret I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. Hans had hidden this for 47 years. Hidden it from me. What else had my husband been hiding? That night, I sat at Hans's desk in our bedroom, surrounded by 43 years of financial records. Hans had kept everything. Bank statements, tax returns, investment account statements, all filed away in his precise, methodical manner. The code from the watch stared up at me from the piece of paper, SS4457CH0815DS. I'd been through every account we owned, every investment, every safety deposit box. Nothing matched those numbers. Hans had been financially conservative, savings account, checking account, a modest retirement fund. Nothing fancy, nothing hidden. Or so I'd thought. My phone rang, interrupting my search. Anna's name flashed on the screen. "Mutter, Lena's upset. She says you made a scene at the pawn shop." I almost laughed. In what world was trying to recover my husband's stolen watch making a scene? "I went to buy back your father's watch. Unfortunately, someone else already purchased it." See, problem solved. Time to move on. The casualness in her voice made my chest tighten with anger. This was Hans's daughter, the baby Hans had worked double shifts to provide for, the kid Hans taught to throw a baseball and change a tire. When had Anna become this cold? "Anna, there was something hidden inside the watch. Your father left me a message." Silence on the other end. Then, what kind of message? Something in her tone made me hesitate. This was the most interested Anna had sounded in anything related to her father since the funeral. "Just some numbers," I said vaguely. "Probably nothing important. Maybe I should come over, help you figure it out." Now, I did laugh bitter and sharp. Yesterday you told me to stop living in the past. Today you want to help sort through Hans's things. "I'm just trying to be supportive, by stealing his watch." Anna sighed heavily. "Fine, be stubborn, but don't come crying to me when you drive yourself crazy chasing ghosts." After she hung up, I stared at the phone. Anna's sudden interest was suspicious, but I couldn't figure out why. She'd made it clear she considered Hans's possessions worthless sentiment. Unless they weren't just sentiment. I returned to the desk, but this time I approached it differently. Instead of looking for accounts that matched the numbers, I started looking for patterns. Hans had been an accountant before his retirement. He thought in systems, in logical progressions. SS could be Social Security. Hans's number started with 457, but not 4457. CH could be Chicago, where we'd lived our entire marriage. 0815 made me pause. August 15th, our wedding anniversary. DS was harder. Hans's initials were HS. Mine were ES. Elizabeth Schmidt. My initials. The code included my initials. I pulled out my laptop and started searching. Swiss bank accounts used codes like this. So did offshore investment firms. 3 hours later, I found it. Secure Solutions Investment Management, based in the Cayman Islands. Their website was discreet, professional, catering to high-net-worth individuals seeking privacy and security. The account login page required a client number and password. With trembling fingers, I typed in SS4457CH0815DS in the client number field. Valid account number appeared on the screen. Now I needed the password. Something only I would know. Something Hans knew I would figure out. I tried our wedding date, our address, my birthday. Nothing. Then I remembered the note. Asterisk Elizabeth's birthday, July 15, 1955. The day I knew I'd marry her. Asterisk not my actual birthday. July 15th was the day we met. At a summer dance in Millennium Park, Hans always said he knew that night he'd marry me someday. I typed in 071555 and held my breath. Access granted. The screen that loaded next made me gasp. Current account balance, $2,470,296. Hans had hidden nearly $3 million from me for our entire marriage. I stared at the screen until the numbers burned themselves into my retinas. $2.8 million in an account I'd never known existed, in a bank I'd never heard of, hidden by a husband who'd spent 43 years convincing me we were living paycheck to paycheck. Every argument we'd had about money, every time I'd clipped coupons or bought generic groceries or patched Hans's work shirts instead of buying new ones, all of it while he had millions sitting in an offshore account. My first instinct was anger. Pure, white-hot rage at the deception, at the lies by omission, at 43 years of wondering if we'd have enough for retirement while Hans secretly stashed away a fortune. But then I clicked on the account history. The first deposit was made in 1982, 3 years after Anna was born. $5,000. The notation read, Initial Inheritance Investment, HS, Inheritance. Hans had never mentioned any inheritance. I scrolled through years of deposits, all relatively small, 500 here, 1,000 there. Regular contributions that explained why Hans had been so careful with our household budget. He hadn't been hiding money from our income. He'd been systematically building something separate. The deposits continued steadily until 2008, then jumped dramatically. Instead of hundreds of dollars, Hans had been depositing 10 and 20,000 at a time. The notation on those larger deposits made my blood run cold. Real estate liquidation, Chicago properties. Hans had been buying and selling real estate without my knowledge. Properties I'd never seen, investments I'd never been consulted about, business dealings that had apparently made him wealthy. How do you live with someone for 43 years and not know they're conducting secret business transactions? I clicked on the account messages and found a folder labeled for Elizabeth, emergency access only. Inside was a video file uploaded just 3 months before Hans died. I hesitated before clicking play. Whatever Hans had to say about this secret fortune, I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. But I was alone in our bedroom at midnight. My daughter had stolen the only clue to this mystery, and I was apparently wealthy beyond my wildest dreams. Ready or not, I needed answers. Hans's face filled the screen, looking older and more tired than I remembered. He was sitting in his office at work, probably having recorded this during his lunch break. Elizabeth, if you're watching this, I'm gone, and something's gone wrong. His voice was steady, but his eyes looked sad. I hoped you'd never need to access this account, that we'd grow old together, and I'd eventually tell you about it over dinner someday. He paused, rubbing his face with the same gesture he'd used whenever he was working through a difficult problem. The money isn't mine, sweetheart. It was my father's, hidden away before he died in 1981. He made me promise to keep it secret, to protect it, to only use it if our family was ever in real danger. Hans's father had died when Anna was 2. I remembered Hans being devastated, remembered the modest inheritance that had paid off our mortgage. Apparently, there had been much more to it. My father saw what the depression did to families, how quickly stability could disappear. He wanted to make sure his grandchildren would always be protected, no matter what happened. Hans looked directly into the camera, and I felt like he was sitting right next to me. I've been investing the money carefully, conservatively. Every penny is documented. Every transaction is legal. It's grown because I've been reinvesting for 40 years, but the original amount was meant to be emergency money, insurance against catastrophe. The video continued with Hans explaining the account details, the investment strategy, the legal protections he'd put in place, but I was stuck on one phrase. I hoped you'd never need to access this account. Hans had died of a heart attack at work. Sudden, unexpected, no warning signs. How could he have known I'd need this money? Unless the catastrophe he'd been protecting against wasn't random. Unless Hans had known something about our family that I was just beginning to understand. The next morning, I called in sick to my part-time job at the library. For the first time in 6 months, I had something more important to do than organizing returned books and shushing teenagers. I needed to understand what Hans had meant by real danger. The investment account had detailed records going back 40 years, but I started with the recent transactions. Hans's last deposit had been made just 2 weeks before he died. $25,000 with the notation property sale, emergency liquidation. Emergency liquidation. Hans had been converting assets to cash right before his death. I spent the morning researching every property transaction Hans had made. The man I'd been married to for 43 years had apparently been a secret real estate mogul, buying and selling properties all over Chicago with money I didn't know we had. But here's what made my blood run cold. Every property Hans had sold in the last year had been purchased by the same buyer, a company called Schmidt Investments LLC. Schmidt was Anna's last name, too. I grabbed my phone and called my nephew Lucas, who worked in real estate. If anyone would know about property transactions in Chicago, it would be Lucas. Tante Elizabeth, how are you holding up? I'm fine, honey. Listen, I need to ask you about something. Have you ever heard of a company called Schmidt Investments LLC? Lucas was quiet for a moment. Actually, yeah. They've been pretty active lately, buying up properties in good neighborhoods. Cash deals, moving fast. Why? Do you know who owns the company? I can find out. Give me an hour. I spent that hour going through Hans's desk more carefully, looking for any documentation about his real estate dealings. Hidden in the back of his filing cabinet, behind 40 years of tax returns, I found a folder marked insurance policies. But instead of insurance documents, the folder contained contracts, property deeds, and correspondence related to Hans's investments. At the bottom of the pile was a letter that made my hands shake. It was from a private investigator, dated 6 months before Hans's death. Herr Schmidt, per your request, I've completed the investigation into your daughter, Anna Schmidt's financial activities. My findings are concerning. Your daughter has accumulated approximately $180,000 in gambling debts to several offshore betting sites. She's also taken out multiple high-interest loans against her business using fraudulent information about her income and assets. Of greater concern are the inquiries Fräulein Schmidt has been making about your estate. She's contacted 3 different lawyers asking about inheritance law and the process for contesting wills. She's also made inquiries about power of attorney procedures and elder care facilities. I believe your daughter is planning to have you declared incompetent in order to gain control of your assets. The paperwork I've uncovered suggests she's been researching this option for several months. I recommend taking immediate steps to protect your assets and ensure your wife's financial security. Regards, Thomas Chen, private investigator. My phone rang. Lucas. Tante Elizabeth, you're not going to believe this. Schmidt Investments LLC is owned by Anna Schmidt. You're Anna. I closed my eyes, the pieces finally falling into place. Hans hadn't been hiding money from me. He'd been hiding it from Anna. Every property sale, every cash deposit, every emergency liquidation had been Hans systematically moving assets out of Anna's reach. Hans had known his own daughter was planning to rob us. But Hans had died before he could warn me, leaving only the hidden compartment in his watch as a clue to find the truth. My daughter hadn't stolen Hans's Rolex for vacation money. She'd stolen it because she was looking for exactly what I'd found, access to Hans's hidden fortune. And now that Anna knew I'd found something in the watch, she wouldn't stop until she figured out what it was. I was still sitting in Hans's chair, staring at the private investigator's report, when I heard Lena's key in my front door. She'd had a spare key since the funeral, ostensibly to check on me when Anna was working. Now I understood she'd been checking on Hans's assets. "Elizabeth, are you here?" Lena's voice echoed through the house, artificially sweet. Anna and I stopped by before heading to the airport. I quickly shoved the investigator's report back into the folder and minimized the offshore account on my laptop screen. Whatever game Anna and Lena were playing, I needed to understand the rules before I revealed my hand. "In the bedroom," I called back. They appeared in the doorway moments later, Anna carrying a small suitcase and Lena wearing the kind of outfit that screamed expensive vacation. Her designer sunglasses probably cost more than most people's rent. "Just wanted to say goodbye," Anna said, but her eyes were scanning Hans's desk, taking inventory of the papers spread around me. "What are you working on?" "Sorting through your father's things," I said carefully. "There's so much I never knew about." Lena stepped closer, her gaze focused on my laptop screen. "Find anything interesting?" The question sounded casual, but I caught the sharp attention in her voice. These weren't courtesy visits. They were reconnaissance missions. Just old bank statements and tax records. "Your father was very thorough with his paperwork." Anna relaxed slightly. "Yeah, Fata was obsessive about record keeping. Probably kept every receipt from the last 20 years. "Actually," I said, deciding to test their reaction, "I did find something odd. Your father had some kind of investment account I didn't know about. Nothing major, just a few thousand." The change in both their expressions was immediate and unmistakable. Anna stepped forward, trying to appear casual, but failing completely. "An investment account? What kind?" "I'm not sure yet. The paperwork is confusing. I might need to hire an accountant to help me figure it out." Lena exchanged a quick glance with Anna. "We could help you with that. Anna's good with financial documents." I bet she is, I thought, remembering the private investigator's report about Anna's gambling debts and fraudulent loan applications. "That's very kind. But I already made an appointment with Hans's old accounting firm. They'll know how to handle his investments properly." Anna's jaw tightened. "Mutter, those guys charge €400 an hour. I can look at the paperwork for free." "I can afford €400 an hour, Anna." The silence that followed was loaded with tension. Lena's mask of concern was slipping, revealing the calculating woman underneath. Anna was practically vibrating with frustrated energy. "We should probably get going," Lena said finally. "Don't want to miss our flight." But Anna didn't move. "Mutter, about the message you found in Fata's watch. Maybe I should take a look at those numbers before we leave, just to make sure they're not something important." "What numbers?" Lena asked sharply. Anna shot her a warning look. "Mutter found some kind of code in the watch. Probably nothing, but you never know." Now Lena was fully alert, her vacation excitement replaced by laser focus. "What kind of code?" I stood up slowly, using my full height to look down at my daughter-in-law. "The kind that's none of your business." Lena's face flushed red. "Excuse me." "You heard me. My husband left me a private message." Private being the operative word. "Mutter," Anna stepped between us, her voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. "We're family. There's no need for secrets." "Secrets?" I almost laughed at the irony. "Like the secret gambling debts or the secret company you've been using to buy properties with money you don't have?" The color drained from Anna's face. Lena's mouth fell open. "I don't know what you're talking about," Anna said, but her voice was shaky now. "Schmidt Investments LLC ring a bell?" I watched both their faces go pale. "Your father knew, Anna. He knew everything." Lena recovered first, her voice turning vicious. "You crazy old woman. You don't know anything. I know your wife owes €180,000 to offshore gambling sites. I know she's been researching how to have me declared incompetent, and I know she's been planning this for months. Anna slumped against the doorframe like her strings had been cut. The fight went out of her completely. How? She whispered. Your father hired a private investigator. Every lie, every debt, every plan you made to steal from us. It's all documented. I walked to the desk and pulled out the investigator's report, watching Anna's face as she recognized the letterhead. Hans protected me from you, even after his death. That code you're so interested in, it's the key to more money than you've ever dreamed of. Money that will never, ever belong to you. Lena grabbed Anna's arm. We need to leave now. But Anna was staring at me with something that looked like respect for the first time in years. He really knew. He knew his daughter was planning to rob her own mother. What kind of woman does that make you, Anna? For just a moment, Anna looked like the little girl I'd raised, confused and ashamed. Then Lena's grip on her arm tightened, and the moment passed. This isn't over, Lena hissed as they headed for the door. Yes, it is, I called after them. It's been over since the day you decided I was worth more to you dead than alive. The front door slammed, leaving me alone with my husband's secrets and the knowledge that the real fight was just beginning. 2 days after Anna and Lena's dramatic exit, my doorbell rang at 8 o'clock in the morning. Through the peephole, I saw a woman in an expensive suit holding a briefcase. Behind her stood a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a law school catalogue. Frau Schmidt, the woman said. I'm Katrin Weber from Weber Muller and Associates. This is my colleague, David Kim. We represent your daughter, Anna, in some family legal matters. Family legal matters. That was one way to put it. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. What can I do for you? Katrin smiled with the kind of practiced warmth that probably cost €400 an hour. Frau Schmidt, your daughter is concerned about your well-being. He's asked us to discuss some options that might be beneficial for everyone involved, Katrin said, as David stepped forward, pulling out a tablet. We understand you may have discovered some financial accounts that your late husband kept private. While we're sure he had good intentions, managing complex investments can be overwhelming, especially during the grieving process. Overwhelming. As if I hadn't spent 40 years managing our household finances down to the penny while Hans secretly played real estate mogul. I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs. Katrin's smile never wavered. Of course you are, but consider this. Your daughter could help shoulder that burden. We've drafted some documents that would give Anna power of attorney over your financial decisions. Just temporarily, until you've had time to properly grieve. There it was. Exactly what Hans's private investigator had warned about. Temporarily, I repeated. And who determines when my grieving period is over? David exchanged a glance with Katrin. That would be at your discretion. Naturally. Naturally. I stepped back toward my door. Gentlemen, I think we're done here. Frau Schmidt, Katrin's voice sharpened slightly. Your daughter is concerned about your well-being. She's prepared to file a petition with the court regarding your mental competency. She's worried about some erratic financial decisions you've been making. What erratic decisions? Accessing offshore accounts, conducting international financial transactions without professional guidance. To an outside observer, it might appear that you're not thinking clearly. The threat was crystal clear. Sign over power of attorney voluntarily, or they'd have me declared incompetent by force. You know what's interesting about threats? I asked, leaning against my doorframe. They only work if the person you're threatening doesn't have better lawyers than you do. Katrin's professional mask slipped slightly. I beg your pardon. I said you can tell my daughter that her plan won't work. Hans left me more than just money. He left me protection. I closed the door in their faces and immediately called the number I'd found in Hans's hidden files. Thomas Chun, the private investigator, answered on the second ring. Herr Chun, this is Elizabeth Schmidt, Hans Schmidt's widow. Frau Schmidt, I've been expecting your call. Hans told me you might need my services someday. He did. About 6 months ago, Hans asked me to prepare a comprehensive legal defense package in case anyone tried to challenge your competency or your right to his assets. Everything's ready to go. Hans had been 3 steps ahead, even in death. How ready, Herchen? By the time I'm done presenting evidence of your daughter's gambling debts, fraudulent loan applications, and attempts to manipulate elderly family members, she'll be lucky if she doesn't face criminal charges. For the first time in months, I smiled genuinely. Herchen, I think it's time to make some phone calls. Thomas Chen's office was in a sleek downtown building that screamed expensive legal services. But as I sat across from him reviewing Hans's defense package, I realized my husband had been planning for this confrontation long before he died. Your husband was thorough, Thomas said, spreading documents across his mahogany desk. Bank records showing Anna's gambling losses, audio recordings of her discussing plans to have you declared incompetent, even photographs of her meeting with estate planning lawyers. Audio recordings. Thomas nodded grimly. Hans suspected Anna was planning something. So, he had your house wired for sound last year. Completely legal since it was his own property. I thought about all the conversations Anna and Lena had had in my kitchen over the past 6 months. Every dismissive comment about my mental state, every calculation about Hans's assets, every cruel joke about putting me in a nursing home. Hans had heard it all. There's more, Thomas continued. Hans also discovered that Lena has been systematically isolating you from family and friends. She's been telling people you're becoming senile, that you need supervision. The pieces clicked into place. Why my sister-in-law had stopped calling. Why neighbors seemed awkward when they saw me. Why my book club friends had been treating me like I was fragile. Lena had been conducting a whisper campaign, preparing the groundwork for Anna's legal challenge. How extensive is the evidence? Extensive enough to destroy any competency challenge and probably land them both in jail for elder abuse and attempted fraud. Thomas pulled out a thick folder. But there's something else. Hans left specific instructions about what to do if you ever needed to access the offshore account. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Hans's careful handwriting. Inside was a letter dated just 1 week before Hans's death. Asterisk, my dearest Elizabeth, if you're reading this, then Anna has shown her true colors, and you've discovered the account I've been building for 40 years. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you about it while I was alive, but I needed to protect it from Anna until the time was right. The money isn't just an inheritance. It's justice. Every penny came from investments I made using information Anna thought she was hiding from us. When she started her real estate company, she would brag about her inside deals and guaranteed investments. What she didn't know was that I was listening and investing in the same opportunities with money she didn't know existed. Anna unknowingly funded her own downfall. Every property she flipped, I bought 3 more in the same area. Every stock tip she mentioned, I invested in with money from our original inheritance. The offshore account exists because I used Anna's own greed against her. Now it's your turn to use her greed against her. Thomas has instructions to make the account transfers immediately. By the time you read this letter, you'll have financial independence Anna can never touch, but more importantly, you'll have the power to choose how this ends. Asterisk. Asterisk, you can forgive her, take care of her despite her betrayal and hope she learns to be a better woman, or you can let her face the consequences of trying to steal from her own mother. The choice is yours, my love. It always has been. Forever yours, Hans. Asterisk, I set the letter down with shaking hands. Hans hadn't just protected me from Anna. He'd orchestrated Anna's downfall using her own schemes against her. Frau Schmidt, Thomas was watching me carefully. Are you ready to proceed? I thought about Anna as a little girl, excited about her first day of school. Then I thought about her standing in my kitchen 2 days ago, calling me a crazy old woman while her wife threatened me. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Herchen, I want you to file every piece of evidence we have with the appropriate authorities, and I want you to do it today. The next morning brought chaos to my quiet Chicago neighborhood. I was sipping coffee and reading the newspaper when 3 black SUVs pulled up to Anna and Lena's house across the street. Men in FBI windbreakers started carrying boxes out of their front door. My phone rang immediately. Mutter. Anna's voice was panicked, desperate. What did you do? I protected myself, I said calmly, watching through my kitchen window as agents loaded computers and filing cabinets into their vehicles. What you should have done for your family instead of trying to rob them. You don't understand. This will destroy us. You destroyed yourselves. I just documented it. Lena's voice came through the phone, shrill and angry. You vindictive old witch. We were trying to help you. By stealing my husband's watch? By planning to have me declared incompetent? By spreading lies about my mental health to isolate me from friends and family? The line went quiet except for Lena's ragged breathing. Hans knew everything, Anna. Every debt, every lie, every plan you made to rob us. He spent the last year of his life protecting me from his own daughter. Vater wouldn't. Your father hired a private investigator to document your gambling addiction and your plans to steal my inheritance. He had our house wired for sound so he could record every conversation you had about putting me in a nursing home. I heard Anna make a sound like a wounded animal. The FBI is seizing your business records because Hans's evidence shows you've been using fraudulent information to secure loans. The IRS is auditing you because you've been hiding income. And the state attorney's office is investigating you for elder abuse. Mutter, please. Anna's voice broke. I never meant for it to go this far. When did it start, Anna? When did you decide your mother was worth more to you dead than alive? Long silence. When Anna spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. When I realized Vater had been hiding money from us. I saw some paperwork in his office last Christmas, references to accounts I'd never heard of. I thought if you both died, everything would come to me automatically. The honesty was brutal, but somehow cleaner than the months of lies and manipulation. You were wrong. Hans made sure everything would be protected from you. How much? Anna asked. How much did he hide? Enough to ensure I never have to depend on family who sees me as a burden. I hung up and watched through the window as FBI agents escorted Anna and Lena to separate cars. Lena was screaming at the agents, probably demanding lawyers and threatening lawsuits. Anna just looked broken. My phone rang again. This time it was my neighbor, Frau Muller. Elizabeth, I just wanted to call and apologize. Lena told me you were having memory problems, and I believed her. I should have talked to you directly. It's all right, Helga. Lena can be very convincing. Is it true what they're saying? That Anna was planning to steal from you? I looked at Hans's picture on my mantel, remembering the man who'd protected me even after death. It's true, but it's over now. 3 weeks later, I sat in Thomas Chen's office reviewing the final legal documents. Anna and Lena were facing federal fraud charges. Their business had been seized, and their assets frozen pending investigation. But that morning had brought an unexpected visitor. Frau Schmidt, there's someone here to see you, Thomas's secretary announced. Says his name is Richard Torres, and he has something that belongs to you. The man who entered was in his 60s, well-dressed, with the kind of careful demeanor that suggested a law enforcement background. In his hands was a familiar blue velvet box. Frau Schmidt, I'm the one who bought your husband's watch from the pawn shop. I stared at him, confused. How did you know to find me? Richard smiled and set the box on Thomas's desk. Because Hans Schmidt hired me 20 years ago to protect this watch if anything ever happened to him. I don't understand. I'm a retired federal marshal, Frau Schmidt. Your husband contracted me to monitor certain situations. When the watch appeared at Golden State Pawn, I was notified immediately. Thomas was taking notes furiously. You were surveilling Anna Schmidt? Among other things. Hans was thorough in his preparations. Richard opened the velvet box, revealing Hans's Rolex. But there's something else you need to know about this watch. He turned it over and pressed something on the back. A second hidden compartment opened, smaller than the first. Inside was a micro SD card. Hans recorded everything, Frau Schmidt. Every conversation Anna had about manipulating you, every meeting with lawyers about declaring you incompetent, every discussion about what to do with your assets after you were gone. The room spun slightly. Hans was recording Anna for 18 months. Audio, video, financial records. Everything needed to ensure Anna could never successfully challenge your mental competency or your right to Hans's inheritance. Richard inserted the SD card into Thomas's computer. The screen filled with folder after folder of evidence, audio recordings, video files, financial documents, even photographs of Anna meeting with lawyers and gamblers. You can forgive her, take care of her despite her betrayal and hope she learns to be a better woman, or you can let her face the consequences of trying to steal from her own mother. The choice is yours, my love. It always has been. Forever yours, Hans. I set the letter down with shaking hands. Hans hadn't just protected me from Anna. He'd orchestrated Anna's downfall using her own schemes against her. Frau Schmidt, Thomas was watching me carefully. Are you ready to proceed? I thought about Anna as a little girl, excited about her first day of school. Then I thought about her standing in my kitchen 2 days ago, calling me a crazy old woman while her wife threatened me. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Herchen, I want you to file every piece of evidence we have with the appropriate authorities, and I want you to do it today. The next morning brought chaos to my quiet Chicago neighborhood. I was sipping coffee and reading the newspaper when 3 black SUVs pulled up to Anna and Lena's house across the street. Men in FBI windbreakers started carrying boxes out of their front door. My phone rang immediately. Mutter. Anna's voice was panicked, desperate. What did you do? I protected myself, I said calmly, watching through my kitchen window as agents loaded computers and filing cabinets into their vehicles. What you should have done for your family instead of trying to rob them. You don't understand. This will destroy us. You destroyed yourselves. I just documented it. Lena's voice came through the phone, shrill and angry. You vindictive old witch. We were trying to help you. By stealing my husband's watch? By planning to have me declared incompetent? By spreading lies about my mental health to isolate me from friends and family. The line went quiet except for Lena's ragged breathing. Hans knew everything, Anna. Every debt, every lie, every plan you made to rob us. He spent the last year of his life protecting me from his own daughter. Vater wouldn't. Your father hired a private investigator to document your gambling addiction and your plans to steal my inheritance. He had our house wired for sound so he could record every conversation you had about putting me in a nursing home. I heard Anna make a sound like a wounded animal. The FBI is seizing your business records because Hans's evidence shows you've been using fraudulent information to secure loans. The IRS is auditing you because you've been hiding income. And the state attorney's office is investigating you for elder abuse. Mutter, please. Anna's voice broke. I never meant for it to go this far. When did it start, Anna? When did you decide your mother was worth more to you dead than alive? Long silence. When Anna spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. When I realized Vater had been hiding money from us. I saw some paperwork in his office last Christmas, references to accounts I'd never heard of. I thought if you both died, everything would come to me automatically. The honesty was brutal, but somehow cleaner than the months of lies and manipulation. You were wrong. Hans made sure everything would be protected from you. How much? Anna asked. How much did he hide? Enough to ensure I never have to depend on family who sees me as a burden. I hung up and watched through the window as FBI agents escorted Anna and Lena to separate cars. Lena was screaming at the agents, probably demanding lawyers and threatening lawsuits. Anna just looked broken. My phone rang again. This time it was my neighbor, Frau Muller. Elizabeth, I just wanted to call and apologize. Lena told me you were having memory problems, and I believed her. I should have talked to you directly. It's all right, Helga. Lena can be very convincing. Is it true what they're saying? That Anna was planning to steal from you? I looked at Hans's picture on my mantel, remembering the man who'd protected me even after death. It's true, but it's over now. 3 weeks later, I sat in Thomas Chen's office reviewing the final legal documents. Anna and Lena were facing federal fraud charges. Their business had been seized, and their assets frozen pending investigation. But that morning had brought an unexpected visitor. "Frau Schmidt, there's someone here to see you," Thomas's secretary announced. "Says his name is Richard Torres, and he has something that belongs to you." The man who entered was in his 60s, well-dressed, with the kind of careful demeanor that suggested a law enforcement background. In his hands was a familiar blue velvet box. "Frau Schmidt, I'm the one who bought your husband's watch from the pawn shop." I stared at him, confused. "How did you know to find me?" Richard smiled and set the box on Thomas's desk. "Because Hans Schmidt hired me 20 years ago to protect this watch if anything ever happened to him." "I don't understand." "I'm a retired federal marshal, Frau Schmidt. Your husband contracted me to monitor certain situations. When the watch appeared at Golden State Pawn, I was notified immediately." Thomas was taking notes furiously. "You were surveilling Anna Schmidt?" "Among other things." Hans was thorough in his preparations. Richard opened the velvet box, revealing Hans's Rolex. "But there's something else you need to know about this watch." He turned it over and pressed something on the back. A second hidden compartment opened, smaller than the first. Inside was a micro SD card. "Hans recorded everything, Frau Schmidt. Every conversation Anna had about manipulating you, every meeting with lawyers about declaring you incompetent, every discussion about what to do with your assets after you were gone." The room spun slightly. Hans was recording Anna for 18 months. Audio, video, financial records. Everything needed to ensure Anna could never successfully challenge your mental competency or your right to Hans's inheritance. Richard inserted the SD card into Thomas's computer. The screen filled with folder after folder of evidence: audio recordings, video files, financial documents, even photographs of Anna meeting with lawyers and gamblers. "Your husband loved you enough to spend the last 2 years of his life building an unbreakable legal defense against his own daughter." I thought about Hans's final months. How stressed he'd seemed. How many work meetings he'd had in the evenings. He hadn't been hiding from me. He'd been protecting me. "There's one more thing," Richard said quietly. "Hans left specific instructions about what to do if Anna ever tried to have you declared incompetent." He pulled out a sealed envelope marked, "Final Instructions, Elizabeth's Protection Plan." Inside was a document that made my breath catch. In the event that Anna Schmidt attempts legal action against Elizabeth Schmidt's mental competency, the following assets will be transferred immediately to the Chicago Children's Hospital in Anna Schmidt's name: all property owned by Schmidt Investments LLC, all gambling debts and outstanding loans, all legal fees and court costs associated with elder abuse charges. Anna Schmidt will be personally responsible for all debts and legal consequences while receiving no benefit from any inheritance or asset transfer. Hans had arranged for Anna to inherit her own destruction. "Your husband was a brilliant man," Thomas said admiringly. "He turned Anna's greed into a legal trap." "Hans knew Anna would never stop trying to get the money," Richard explained. "So he made sure that any attempt to steal from you would result in Anna losing everything she already had." I picked up Hans's watch, feeling its familiar weight in my hands. For 43 years, I'd thought I was married to a simple accountant who worried about money and saved every penny. Instead, I'd been married to a master strategist who'd spent 2 years orchestrating the most elaborate protection plan in legal history. "Frau Schmidt," Richard said gently, "your husband asked me to give you a final message if this day ever came." He handed me one last envelope, this one unsealed. Inside, in Hans's handwriting: "Elizabeth, you were always stronger than you knew. I just made sure you'd have the tools to prove it. Love always, Hans." 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of the Chicago Children's Hospital, watching workers install a brass plaque that read the Hans Schmidt Memorial Wing, funded by Elizabeth Schmidt. Hans's fortune had been more than enough to secure my future and fund the hospital expansion he'd always dreamed about. The final irony was that Anna's attempt to steal from me had directly resulted in the largest charitable donation in the hospital's history. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas Chun. "Anna's sentencing hearing is next week. They're recommending 2 years federal prison plus full restitution. Lena took a plea deal for 18 months. Still want to attend?" I typed back, "No, I have better things to do. And I did. At 73, I was finally living the life Hans had protected for me. I'd bought a small house near the lake, joined 3 book clubs, and started volunteering at the hospital twice a week. For the first time in decades, I was making decisions based on what I wanted, not what my family expected. My doorbell rang as I was preparing dinner. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman with Anna's eyes and a nervous smile. Oma Elizabeth, it's Maria, Anna's daughter. I hadn't seen her since Hans's funeral, when she was finishing college and starting her first job. Lena had made sure to cut me off from the grandchildren along with everyone else. I opened the door. Maria, what a surprise. I know I should have called first. She was twisting her hands nervously. I heard about Mama and Lena, about what they did to you. I wanted to apologize. You have nothing to apologize for. I do though. I knew something was wrong. Mama kept asking weird questions about Opa Hans's finances, and Lena was always making comments about your memory. I should have said something. I studied my granddaughter's face, seeing Hans's honesty there along with Anna's features. Come in, sweetheart. Let's talk. Over dinner, Maria told me about her new job teaching elementary school, her engagement to a young doctor, and her guilt about her mother's crimes. I keep thinking I should visit her in prison, she said. But I'm so angry about what she did to you. Anger is normal, but Anna is still your mother. How can you not hate her? I thought about Hans's letter, about the choice he'd given me between forgiveness and justice. Because hate would mean she still had power over me. I choose peace instead. Maria's eyes filled with tears. I missed you so much. Lena told everyone you were getting confused, that you didn't want to see us anymore. I never stopped wanting to see you, and I never will. As Maria helped me clear the dishes, she paused at Hans's photo on the mantel. I always wondered why Opa Hans wore that watch every single day. He must have really loved it. I smiled, thinking about the 2 hidden compartments, the offshore account, the elaborate protection plan that had saved my life. He loved what it protected. That night, after Maria left with promises to visit every week, I sat on my back porch watching the sunset over Lake Michigan. Hans's watch was on my wrist, keeping perfect time. He'd been gone 8 months, but somehow he was still taking care of me.